On a somber autumn day in 1792, the new government of revolutionary France made one of history's most mysterious decisions. An order was issued to remove all church bells throughout the country. The official explanation was simple. These bronze giants needed to be melted down and transformed into cannons and currency because the young republic desperately needed military materials. However, when workers climbed the magnificent towers of Notre Dame, they did not simply encounter church bells. Before them stood a complex acoustic system that could not be explained by any known engineering technology of that era. While the streets of Paris echoed with revolutionary slogans and calls for freedom, an entirely different story was emerging at the summits of ancient towers. A story that would require us to question everything we know about humanity's technological past. Workers who ascended the bell tower of Saint-Sulpice Church were astonished by what they initially saw. Yes, there were massive bronze bells there, but what surrounded them was completely unexpected. An intricate network of copper conductors, metal surfaces arranged in spiral patterns, and most intriguingly, components manufactured with a precision that far exceeded the metalworking capabilities of the 18th century. These structures exhibited an appearance completely atypical for ordinary bell towers, as if the bells were merely the visible parts of a much larger system. These conductors, examined by engineers and craftsmen, were produced with metallurgical workmanship that was not even theoretically possible at that time. The micro-patterns on their surfaces and perfect geometric alignments raised profound questions about how they could have been achieved without modern laser technology. Even more interesting was that these copper systems were found as a standard configuration not only in Notre Dame, but in dozens of churches and cathedrals throughout Paris, as if the entire city had been built according to an invisible template. The second astonishing element workers discovered was the mysterious mineral formations covering the interior surfaces of the bell chambers. Modern mineralogists know that such crystalline structures can only form under prolonged, intense, and consistent vibration, yet the density and complexity of these formations were far too extensive to be explained by weekly or monthly bell ringing. These crystallized layers appeared as if these chambers had been exposed to a continuous resonance frequency for years, perhaps even centuries. Even stranger was that these mineral deposits were not irregular or random, but concentrated along specific geometric lines, much like the traces left by electrical current on insulating surfaces. These residues found on metal surfaces bore a striking resemblance to phenomena that modern physicists explain through the piezoelectric effect. That is, processes where mechanical vibration converts into electrical energy. However, in 1792, such a concept had not yet been discovered. So how had these structures emerged? Some researchers suggest that these mineral formations may have been used for frequency stabilization, in the same way quartz crystals are used in electronic circuits today. If these bell chambers were indeed some kind of energy generation system, these crystalline deposits could be its functional remnants. The third and perhaps most striking discovery was the acoustic alignment of churches throughout Paris. French engineers noticed that the bell towers of Notre Dame, Saint-Sulpice, Sacré-Cœur, and dozens of other churches were positioned in perfect geometric and acoustic harmony with one another. These structures had been built over centuries at different times by different architects, yet all their fundamental resonance frequencies were remarkably similar. Even more interesting was the pattern these towers formed on the city map. Viewed from above, the great cathedrals and churches perfectly followed a specific geometric network, what some call sacred geometry. These structures extending along the curves of the Seine River were positioned like the strings of a giant instrument. Acoustic researchers note that such alignment is too precise and perfect to be coincidental. The location of each tower appeared to have been selected to optimize how sound waves would propagate and interact across the city. This was a level of acoustic engineering that even modern city planners would find difficult to achieve. So how had builders in the 13th, 14th, and 15th centuries accomplished this. The only explanation was that these structures followed a pre-existing template or master plan, and each new tower was designed to integrate into the existing network. But perhaps the most disturbing finding was the design of the bells themselves. Unlike normal bells designed to produce music, these massive metal spheres seemed to serve a very different purpose. Engineers discovered that the internal geometry and wall thickness of these bells were optimized to amplify specific frequencies rather than produce musical tones. A normal church bell is designed to produce a beautiful, audible sound, but these giant structures at Notre Dame functioned like harmonic oscillators designed to resonate at frequencies far above and below the range the human ear can perceive. The microgrooves and embossments on the bell surfaces were not random decorative elements, but calculated acoustic lenses designed to direct and concentrate sound waves. Moreover, many of these bells were not completely hollow inside. They contained a complex skeleton made of metal rods and cages, just like the internal structure of modern sound resonators. These internal structures appear designed to channel and amplify the vibrations produced by the bell in specific directions. Were these musical instruments or energy generators? Some theories propose that these bells were actually piezoelectric devices, tools that convert mechanical vibration into electrical energy. If the bells were operated continuously or at frequent intervals and interacted with materials having piezoelectric properties, they could theoretically generate measurable amounts of electricity. But in 1792, electricity was not yet fully understood. So who, when, and why had designed such a system? The official narrative says these bells were melted down and converted into military materials. But were all of them really melted? Records from 1792 to 1794 are suspiciously incomplete and contradictory. Some reports mention thousands of tons of bronze being collected, while others record much less metal than expected. Moreover, the bells with the most complex internal mechanisms, especially those located at central nodes of the acoustic network, were the first to be confiscated and prioritized for melting. This selectivity suggests not merely military necessity, but a deletion operation. With the transformation of the bells and their internal systems into simple bronze ingots, a technology was erased, and this erasure was carried out so meticulously that almost no evidence remained. Today, when you visit old churches in Paris, you will of course see bells in the bell towers, but these are modern replicas installed in the 19th century or later. No one knows anymore what the original system looked like or how it functioned because all evidence was methodically eliminated. So what was this energy network used for? Some researchers point to the suspiciously good illumination of Paris streets in the 18th century. Period travel journals mention that Parisian nights were unusually bright compared to other European capitals, but we know that widespread gas lamps had not yet been invented at that time. So where did this light come from? One theory suggests that the acoustic energy network powered vibration-based lighting systems. Another possibility is that this network was used for communication or signal transmission by generating electromagnetic waves, a reality where wireless communication existed long before the end of the 19th century. Some theories go even further. They propose that these towers generated free energy by interacting with Earth's natural magnetic field. Could Nikola Tesla's research into wireless energy transmission and resonance technologies in the 20th century actually be a rediscovery of much older knowledge? Was Tesla's Wardenclyffe Tower project, a massive facility aimed at transmitting wireless energy through the atmosphere, a modern version of these Parisian bell towers? The timing of the 1792 confiscation order is also quite intriguing. Why did the revolution make the removal of bells throughout the country such an urgent priority at precisely that moment? Were military needs real, or was something else being hidden? Some historians believe that the revolution was not only a political and social transformation, but also a moment of technological rupture. The old systems under the control of the monarchy and the church, not just political structures, but perhaps also energy infrastructures, had to be eliminated for the establishment of the new order. If these bells truly powered the city, their control meant tremendous power. Whoever controlled this energy network controlled Paris. Perhaps the revolutionary forces chose to destroy this ancient technology because they could not understand or control it. Or perhaps, a darker possibility, they wanted to prevent the existence of this system and how it worked from being revealed to the public, because this knowledge was of a nature that would overturn the official narrative of history. Among the internal mechanisms workers found at Notre Dame, the most mysterious were the giant spherical metal enclosures. These spheres, positioned inside or immediately adjacent to the bells, attracted attention with their perfectly symmetrical forms. You would not expect such structures in a normal bell tower because, as musical instruments, bells have no need for such complex internal components. But these spheres were there, and they bore markings similar to resonators used for frequency amplification. Physicists today know how sound waves at certain frequencies can resonate and self-amplify within a closed spherical cavity. This phenomenon is called spherical harmonics and is used in many modern applications, from laser technology to quantum physics. But who could have known this knowledge in the 18th century or even earlier? The precise grooves and embossments on these spheres' surfaces functioned like acoustic lenses designed to reflect and focus sound waves at specific angles. Just as a laser beam is directed and concentrated with mirrors, sound waves were shaped and amplified by these metal surfaces. But why was so much effort needed? Was it just for a beautiful bell sound, or were these frequencies being used for another purpose? When we look at the geometric arrangement of Paris's bell towers, the picture becomes even more fascinating. When you map the city and mark the major churches, the resulting shape is not random. On the contrary, it conforms to a specific geometric pattern, an ancient organizational principle that some call sacred geometry, such as the flower of life or other archaic symbols. With Notre Dame at the center, Saint-Sulpice, Sainte-Chapelle, Saint-Germain-des-Prés, and other major structures are positioned at equal angles and specific distances from the center. Even the curves of the Seine River appear integrated into this geometry, as if the city itself was designed as a giant resonant circle. Ancient texts and myths mention that old cities, Atlantis, Lemuria, Mu, were built with similar geometric plans, a main power source at the center, with satellite structures arranged symmetrically around it. Could Paris be a surviving example of the architectural principles of these lost civilizations? If these churches were designed not merely as places of worship, but as nodes of an interconnected energy network, then we need to reevaluate all of Europe's cathedral construction with fresh eyes. Why do Gothic cathedrals always rise toward the sky? Why do they all have giant towers? And why are their acoustic properties so perfect? Perhaps the answer lies not in architecture, but in energy engineering. The confiscation process of 1792 itself is extremely suspicious. Under normal circumstances, if a government wants to collect bronze, the most logical approach is to start with the largest and heaviest bells, because these provide the most metal. But French authorities did the exact opposite. Bells with the most complex internal mechanisms and the most advanced acoustic systems were targeted first. Simple, plainly designed small bells were left for later, while giant resonators and those equipped with copper conductor networks were urgently removed and melted. This can only be explained not by mere metal needs, but by knowledge erasure. If the revolutionary government, or someone working behind the scenes, knew the true function of these bells, then the priority would be to destroy the technology. The melting process itself was also different from standard procedures. Normal bronze melting is a relatively simple process, but the operations in 1792 were surrounded by military-level secrecy and security measures. Workers are said to have received strict instructions not to discuss the parts they removed with anyone or record details. According to some reports, certain components, especially copper spiral systems and spherical resonators, were not melted but were secretly transported to unknown locations. Where are these parts today? Are they stored in France's state archives or in private collections? Or were they completely destroyed? According to the official narrative of history, during the Middle Ages and Renaissance, Europe gradually emerged from primitive conditions and progressed toward the Age of Enlightenment. But if Paris's bell towers were part of an energy network, this narrative collapses. Because then it means that a society or civilization existing before the 18th century already knew and used principles we discovered in the 20th century. Acoustic energy, resonance technology, wireless energy transmission, are these not modern inventions but recovered versions of forgotten ancient knowledge? If so, who possessed this knowledge? Were the monks and cathedral builders of the Middle Ages equipped not only with religious architecture, but also with advanced physics and engineering knowledge? Or were they inheritors of a chain of knowledge extending even further back, perhaps to the ancient world, Egypt, Sumer, Atlantis? The acoustic properties of the pyramids, the geometric alignment of Stonehenge, the megalithic structures of Göbekli Tepe all raise similar questions. Perhaps human history is not a straight line of progress, but a cycle full of rises and falls, and we are now slowly rediscovering the technology of a civilization that existed in the past. What makes this story even more intriguing is the reemergence of similar technologies in the modern era. Nikola Tesla conducted revolutionary experiments on resonance and wireless energy transmission at the beginning of the 20th century, and many of his projects were not funded or were suppressed. Tesla designed towers that could provide wireless energy worldwide. The Wardenclyffe Tower is the most famous example. But Tesla's ideas were seen as a threat by the power holders of the time, oil and electricity companies, and his project was cut short. If Tesla was trying to rediscover what Paris's bell towers could do, then this suppression could be the modern version of 1792. History is full of the continuous obstruction of free energy or decentralized power systems, because these technologies have the potential to overturn society's power balances. If everyone can generate their own energy without dependence on any central authority, the foundations of economic and political systems are shaken. Is this why time and again such technologies have been erased from the historical stage? The story we are told today is this: medieval people were devout, simple, and technologically primitive. For them, building giant stone structures and hanging bells was solely for worship of God. But if these structures were actually functional technologies, energy generating, wireless communication providing, or environmental condition regulating systems, then we need to rewrite our history from the beginning. Why were cathedrals always built in specific locations, with specific geometric alignments? Why do they always have giant towers reaching toward the sky? Why are their internal spaces so acoustically perfect that even a whispered voice can echo? The official answer is, to show the glory of God. But perhaps the real answer is much more practical and technological. These structures were terminal points of a planet-wide energy network designed to sustain, illuminate, and support human life. And now, 230 years later, we can only trace the remnants of this technology through indirect evidence: abnormal mineral deposits, unexplainable metalwork, suspicious historical records, and globally repeating geometric patterns. The Great Erasure operation of 1792 was successful, but not completely, because careful eyes can still see the remaining clues. If Europe's magnificent cathedrals are truly places of worship, why are all their acoustic properties so advanced? Why do their towers resonate at exactly the same frequencies? Why are there mineral formations on their inner walls suggesting piezoelectric activity? And most importantly, why has this knowledge been carefully removed from history books deleted from archives, and made to be forgotten. The truth is that civilizations that came before us may have developed an energy science we have not yet fully grasped, and this knowledge was erased from history, perhaps because it was deemed too dangerous or too liberating. Paris 1792 was just one moment of this erasure process, but that brief window points to a reality we were never meant to see. Human civilization is much older, much more advanced, and much more mysterious than believed. Were these towers truly just monuments of faith? Or were they visible nodes of a giant energy system that once encompassed the entire planet? Official history books offer one answer, but the truth perhaps still lies hidden in the silence of those ancient towers. If you too want to hear the lost voices of our past, discover the untold face of our history, and question humanity's true technological legacy, don't forget to subscribe to the Ouroboros Files channel. Because history is written by the victors, but truth always leaves its trace.